Well, here we go, everyone. Welcome to our very first ever virtual winemakers dinner. Hopefully this is the last one because we're sure hoping to see all of you back here soon, and certainly for the next winemakers dinner. And who knows, maybe we'll still do a virtual one and a live one for those that can't make it each year. We've had just a lot of fun putting this together, and the response has been overwhelming. Our team has filled something like 1,500 little bottles. We have about 250 sets, over 500 people potentially watching this. So it's just great. And we're going to start here in a few minutes. But I want to make sure that everyone has poured their little bottles into glasses on the mats and you're ready to go. And we're going to taste them together. So you can smell, but no cheating. You're going to taste with us. And as we describe the wines, and we have a phenomenal show. We got some amazing videos. We're going to take you out into the vineyard and talk about how these wines are made. And you get to talk and listen to the people that have put these wines together. And we have Allie on the board tonight, and she's going to be monitoring the chat room. And so if you have questions, please ask her, and she'll get those questions to us, and so forth. So let me make a couple quick introductions. Again, probably most people know me, but I'm Tom Davies, and the president of Sattui. And along with me, we have our panel of experts, and of course, winemaker dinner. We should introduce our winemakers first, and Brooks Painter, our director of winemaking,
everyone,
sitting in front of the tower. And then alongside of him is our other winemaker, Jason Moravec. Jason.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, boy. Well, it wouldn't be a winemakers dinner without the two of you. I'd like to introduce my colleague, John Winklehouse, executive vice president of the winery.
hello, everybody. Glad you're here.
That looks just like your regular office with all those wine glasses by your desk, John.
Oh, can you see those?
I can. And then our food and wine mastermind, Marc Golick.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be in here tonight. I can't wait.
Yeah, Marc in front of our ovals down the cellar. And then Stefano Masanti, our own Italian Michelin star chef.
Buonasera.
And so again, as I promised, we have a great show. So before we get going, just a couple things, a couple exciting announcements. So the Napa Valley's back. Governor Newsom, in all his glory, has proclaimed that June 15th, all restrictions will be lifted. We're keeping our fingers crossed that happens, and that we'll be able to start some of our events. And if you were here at the winery today, you would say the pandemic is over. We had a couple thousand people here today. It's just a glorious day here in the Napa Valley. And so we have a couple events. And so it's been really hard to plan our typical Festa Italiana, our typical harvest ball. So we have kind of retooled our Festa Italiana, and we're still going to have the same Festa band. We're going to have Anthony Nino Lane and his band entertaining us, but we're going to do a different menu. We're going to have bistecca a vino, and it's going to be steak and wine. And if any of you have ever had and been to Italy and had these Italian bistecca fiorentinas, and maybe Stefano, you can just tell us a little bit about what the heck is a bistecca fiorentina?
A bistecca fiorentina basically is a T-bone steak that is typical of Florence. That's why they call it Fiorentina, and come from a specific animal that is la mucca chianina. So a super huge cow that you can find is a white cow that you can find in Tuscany, and practically is a double porterhouse. So we will grill it, very simple, with only rosemary and salt, and we will have a panzanella for a start with, and some veggies, some potatoes, good music, and a lot of action, because the grill we will in front of the guests. So we will have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And wines, of course.
Yeah. I think Ali just tried to put a graphic on the screen, but for some reason it didn't show. But what it showed was a huge steak.
It's kind of.
Yeah, they're really huge. So it's going to be fantastic. And there we go. We got it. Oh my God. And then, so I think you just got one in the other day. So I can't wait. We're going to do a little test drive with it. And then again, the Anthony Lane Band should be great. He's, sings all in Italian. We're going to have it on the back lawn. And then the next event we're going to have, and again, it's been impossible during the pandemic to plan the Harvest Ball, but we still want to have an event. So instead of having it on Saturday, we're going to have it on September 17th. It's a Friday night, and we're going to call it Notte Italiana, and featuring another great menu by Stefano. And this one is going to be fabulous. Out in the back, under the stars, and you have a special meal for this one as well, don't you, Stefano?
Of course, and it will be a little trip around Italy, starting from north to Sicily, and you will have a taste of a lot of different ingredients like mozzarella di bufala, like anchovies, like amatriciana, but we will not make the pasta. We will make ravioli. The filling will be the matriciana, and the pecorino will be the sauce, and a filet tenderloin with mushrooms and other surprises. I don't want to tell everything, so nobody show up then.
Well, and it's going to be a lot like the old Harvest Balls, because we still have to limit. We can't get the 500 people, so we're if you're interested, you should sign up soon, because we're only going to have probably a couple hundred or more under the stars, and it should be a great fun. And then the entertainment is an Italian tenor. His name is Pasquale Esposito, and he is amazing. He performed for a private event here at the winery, and my good friends Jim and Jeannie Majority invited us down to the desert, and we got to see him perform at the McCollum House in Palm Springs. And what an amazing tenor. And I've been trying to get him back here to the winery. And so I think we just lucky that it worked out on Fridays. He has events booked on the Thursday and on the Saturday. And he's friends with Placido Domingo and others, and he has performed all throughout Italy. And so it should be a great show. Well, look, I don't want to talk too long because we got a lot of great wines. And so let's get right into it. So the first wine we're going to taste tonight is our Reserve Chardonnay. So hopefully all of you have had a chance to pour this and smell this. And before we talk about this specific one, Ali, why don't you run this video where Brooks and I and others, we talk about our Reserve wine program. And these are wines that we have created from our vineyards down in the Canaries. So let's go. Oh, Brooks, this is such a gorgeous ranch. And this is a little bit before your time, but in 1993, Daria and I walked on this property long before there was any vineyards. And we met Herb Henry, and he was the great grandson of Elisha Henry. And his Elisha had purchased this property, I think it's part of a Spanish land grant back in 1855. And this is really a historical property. This is back around the turn of the century. It was a farm, and so Herb sold, and his brother sold cheese, milk, and hay to the general store. It's just a great history, and we're so proud of this ranch and that we've been able to preserve these old buildings and for people to come see and enjoy.
Well, it's a real pleasure and a unique opportunity to be making wines from this site. The soils are fairly shallow for the most part. There's bedrock down below, which really limits the amount of grapes that you can grow here. So the small yields adds to the intensity of the wines, especially Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. I think this is absolutely Chardonnay and Pinot Noir country.
Well, today, Brooks, we're going to be talking about our Reserve Chardonnay and Reserve Pinot programs. Why don't we go out in the vineyard and see what's going on out there today and talk about those wines?
Sounds good. Let's go.
All right. We're in block 7 of our Chardonnay. How do you go about, looking at these vineyards in this particular block 7 and say, okay, this portion, or how do we arrive at 200 cases out of a ranch that possibly could be, making well over 1,000 cases of wine or more?
Well, the way I like to explain it, you have to start with the ground, from the ground up. So these soils are a mix of marine sediments from old ancient seabeds, some volcanic sediments from the Sonoma volcanics about 5 million years ago. And as you can see in the ground here, I'll grab one. This is more of a volcanic stone, tufa type stone, but there's other marine sediments here. So it's a mix of marl and different types of rock. So the selection of rootstock clones play a big role in the quality of the grapes that we're getting from this vineyard. And then we don't always make a reserve wine every single year. Some vintages we just don't feel confident that we have the reserve quality that we're looking for. The wines are great, but we're looking for something extra special for the reserve.
Well, let's go check out our Pinot blocks and talk a little bit about our Pinot Reserve.
Okay.
Well, does it look like we have 2 clusters here in these sheets?
It looks like it's a pretty fruitful
Yeah.
year. Of course, we're going to have to come back, and I'm sorry, we're going to drop some of that fruit.
Yeah, I know. What makes this particular block of Pinot so special?
Well, we have, I mentioned with the Chardonnay, clonal selections are really important. They're paramount with Pinot Noir. There are many to choose from. Some are marginal to good quality, some are exceptional quality, and we've perfected our selection of clones, Pinot Noir clones, so we really feel like we have a wonderful variety of high quality clones here. And this particular site is also quite rocky. Over the years, the Carneros Creek has meandered back and forth and scraped a lot of the topsoil off of here, so very shallow soils, which is important when you're talking about a red wine in particular. It's very important with Chardonnay, but even more important with Pinot Noir, because you're looking for really big intensity and not only the flavors, but the aromatics.
Our reserve wines are typically blended first. And what that means is we have many different lots of wines here that we age separately. And we create them by the vineyard. So each vineyard is kept separate from all the other ones. So during blending, we have many different choices to be putting these all together. And for our reserve wines, we will blend these first. And what that means is we have many different options. We basically have all of our paints as an artist to craft the best wine that we can make. And that is our goal with these reserve wines. So for the Reserve Chardonnay, it is 100% new French oak, and I taste them one by one and decide, okay, of this lot, these 2 barrels are the best of this entire lot. So these are the 2 barrels that are going to go into the reserve program. Bringing the blending and crafting down to that level, that attention to detail, is really what sets our Reserve Chardonnay aside from the others. We're really not limited at all with these wines. As a winemaker, it's nice to be able to say, I think this is going to improve wine quality for this wine. And we're given all the tools we can ever have. We pull out all the stops for our reserve program just to make the best wine that we possibly can.
Well, I think we're back. And I'd like to have Jason and Brooks maybe just talk a little bit about this particular vintage of the 18 Reserve Chardonnay. And I know we've got a great overview about how we put together these reserve wines, but let's talk about this particular, and by the way, this is just so delicious. Great job, you guys.
Well, thanks, Tom. This particular vintage, the thing that marked 2018 was fairly wet winter and spring, unlike our current year, where the last 2 years have been almost drought-like conditions. So when you have abundant rain in the fall, excuse me, in the winter, in the spring, you get some great shoot growth. We also had a number of frost events. We were protecting for frost quite a number of times. But with the additional water in the soil profile, we get some early shoot growth. And there's a correlation between the length of the shoot, the number of leaves, and the quality of the wine. So 2018 gave us an abundance of those powerhouse photosynthesizing leaves to just concentrate the abundance of aroma and flavor. And then the other thing that goes into our reserve program are the selection of barrels. And barrels are, they come in many different and spectacular characteristics, depending on the cooper and the style of the house of the cooper. Chardonnay and Pinot Noir traditionally come from the Burgundy region of France, as opposed to Bordeaux. So historically, over centuries, they've developed their own style of barrel making, perhaps a little bit more of a vanilla and a little bit of a smoky character. We use some heavy toast barrels, and that allows us to add a lot of complexity to the wine.
Yeah, and jumping in there, I'd like to talk a little bit about the what we're smelling in this wine. I mean, get your nose in there and really get a good smell. And I'd like to separate out what we're smelling into kind of two categories. One of which is what I like to call the aroma, what we talk about a lot. And the aroma is coming from the fruit or the vineyard of where this wine was sourced from. And then the other half of these smells that we're smelling, I like to categorize as the bouquet. And the bouquet are all the influences of kind of what Brooks and I, how we're adding our little touch onto it. And so all those barrels, all those French oak barrels that we're using on this product kind of give those flavors of vanilla and toasted marshmallow and those toasty notes. Whereas when you're smelling those fruit aromas, you're talking about which clones that we use. So Brooks, what is your favorite clone of Chardonnay that we use?
Well, the one we've been planning the most of recently is known as the Wente selection. The Wente selection was one of the first Chardonnay clones to arrive in North America from France. And it has some real unique characteristics, the morphology. So the clusters tend to be very diminutive. The berries are very small. The yields are low. And so it gives you that good intensity and stone fruit as opposed to citrus and lemon. And we always like a little bit of citrus, but we don't want it to be too dominant. We're looking for more peach and more exotic stone fruits. The other thing, Jason, that in referring to bouquet is our selection of yeast. And many times we won't use a commercial yeast at all. We'll let these wines go and start on their own with the native yeast to come in on the grape skins, and that adds a whole nother kind of wild card to what the end result of the wine is. And native yeast fermentations are always a little bit of a surprise, but they give us something that's really quite unique, and so it allows us to give another, as Jason said, another part of the palate, the artist palates to work with.
And Brooks, you're totally right. The native fermentations that we do, they are very tricky, and you have to pay very close attention to them because you're not sure how they're gonna change or react to the wine. But they add a lot of those complexities that we're looking for in this reserve program. And so I enjoy being able to blend and work with those for sure. And then also, just to kind of recap what a clone is. So we have different varieties, and that's kind of what we're tasting here. Within the varieties, you can kind of subcategorize each of these varieties into different clones, and each of these clones have different characteristics that we choose. And in clonal selections, we're always looking for a couple different things, like if we can make the vine grow better, or if we can make it taste better. And having it grow better, you're always looking for, is it resistant to different diseases or pests, versus when we're making it taste better, something like the Wente clone that Brooks was talking about, that clone often has these little shot berries. We call them chicks and hens, where it didn't really pollinate very well, and it results in these little tiny berries. And that really increases the flavor of these wines. And it's very particular to these specific clones for Chardonnay that we use for our reserve program.
Well, it's amazing. And I think Chardonnay is one of these varieties, and you know, Mark, you'd probably agree with this, is that, you know, on its own, if you just take and ferment Chardonnay like you would a Sauvignon Blanc and stick it in a stainless steel tank, it's one thing. But it's one of these wines that winemakers really get the craft. Great Chardonnays really take, I think, talented winemakers, because you really craft the wine in the cellar, and with the use of oak and clones and everything, in barrel fermentation and all the rest. And so a great Chardonnay really shows a talented winemaker as well as a great farmer. Well, Mark, what do you, you know, as a food and wine expert, how do you categorize this wine, and what would you serve with this?
Well, you know, the first thing right away that's jumping out at me about this Chardonnay is that it is really, in a fantastic way, quite different from our last version. This is bursting, and I'll tap in with what Jason and Brooks were talking about, this stone fruitiness, not just that classic apple or citrus or pear-like finishes. This is really going into a huge spectrum, from white peach and nectarines, and then going into some light tropical notes as well, which is such a fun play for wine and food pairing chefs, because the other aspect of this wine is this luscious vanilla, toasted, buttery, creamy, that malolactic fermentation side of it. Now, Jason or Brooks, did we allow this to go 100% malolactic like we have in the past?
It's typically 70 to 80%.
Okay.
We always hold a little bit back, just to give us a little bit more brightness in the final blend, and also so that we retain some acidity, to give it a little backbone.
And that honestly is the thing about especially about our reserve stock lineup of Chardonnays that I appreciate the most, is that it's not just who melted a stick of butter in here, you know, and that is sort of a popular methodology now. You'll find those, we kind of playfully call them the butter bombs. And it's, to me, and for wine and food pairing, can be a little overbearing. That can be a little bit tough to deal with. So to have a wine with the kind of balance that this does, this delicate balancing act between these fruit acidities and the rich, buttery, creamy, toasted notes, is so pleasurable, not only as a drinkable wine on its own, but then therefore opens it up to so much more of a venue of wine and food pairing. So absolutely in love with this new version. I'm always straightforward and honest with everybody, and I am hard to impress with Chardonnays. It's just not my personal favorite thing to go to, but when I come across styles like this, it really gets my attention, and I just want to start playing with them. So I'm excited to be able to try to pair this up with some dish tonight.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking to Stefano in a few minutes. Yeah, we want to get his take on the pasta dish, and maybe we'll do that after the Pinot. But I'm sure all of you have looked at this beautiful collateral that Ali spent a lot of time assembling, and with the help of the winemaking team. But John, I'm just kind of looking at the back page here of these accolades, particular wine, and just this one really sticks out to me, because I think we just won it like a couple weeks ago, Best of Show white wine.
Yeah, and it's it is absolutely not surprising if you taste this wine right now. It's the San Diego International Wine Competition, and it's an international competition. So it was this Chardonnay was named not only the best Chardonnay, but was the best show white wine. And okay, I mean, there's some steady, stiff competition with that. So Brooks and Jason, congratulations to you on this. It only scored 96 points. It got a platinum, and you know, if they had a double platinum, they probably would have given it to you. Okay, so it's a fabulous wine. And then, you know, even Jeb Dubneck and the wine advocate Robert Parker loved the wine, as did the San Francisco Chronicle wine competition. So great wine. There's only 272 cases produced. The prior vintage, the 2017 at release, 184 cases, and that's been sold out for, I think, almost 9 months. So I think this wine is going to go quickly because it's just such a great value and such a great wine.
All right, well, again, congratulations to the team. And it's again, everyone too, you know, as you saw from the video, you know, these are wines that we, you know, that we grow, we make. It's our own estate fruit. We're so proud of it. Well, look, I'm excited to get to the reds. This is now our top Pinot Noir. This is our 2018 Reserve. And maybe just to kind of piggyback on Jason and Brooks, what you two were talking about, the importance of clonal selection and putting together great Pinots. And again, if you look at the cards, the collateral, I noticed that there's about 6 clones or so in this wine. And if maybe just talk a little bit about that and how important that is into, you know, crafting a wine of this quality.
Absolutely, Tom. As I said on the video earlier, with Pinot Noir, the clonal selections are really important. And what you're looking for with Pinot Noir is the really nuanced aromas of some earth and mushroom, but you also need a huge dollop of black cherry and other spices. And for example, sage and some of the wild herbs that grow here in Napa Valley. And then of course, combining with the oak, you'll get some cinnamon and some black pepper. But the clonal selections are very important. I think 3 out of the ones you mentioned are what we refer to as Dijon Clones. They're relatively recent additions in the last 20 years or so. They were selections that were made over decades in Burgundy. And so they were selected for their positive attributes. The Pommard, the DRC, also known as a Domaine de Romani-Conti selection, and the 91 clone. These are a little more esoteric. They're a little bit older clones. And so they're the ones that you're going to get more of the sauce, you know, the stewed tomato and the wonderful characteristics that are not so much focused on black fruit. They're focused more on spice and other characters that you're looking for that adds to the complexity of the overall wine.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what Brooks is saying, with Pinot Noir, it is a variety that just, it can have a lot of natural mutations in the vineyard. And so that's what's led to all these different types of clones that we're able to pick and choose from. And by having such a wide variety of just the high-end Pinot Noir clones in our vineyards, we're able to, while we're crafting and blending, we're able to kind of pick and choose what's going into each one for our blends. In particular, of the Dijon clones that Brooks was talking about, like clone 115, that often has a lot of those aromatics that we're looking for in our Pinot Noir, as it brings in those really rich complexity in the aromatics. And then the Dijon clone, like 777 and the 667, those have a lot more of a deep richness to the palate. And so you put these and you play with these, you put them together, and once you craft your blend, you have the best of all the worlds with designing all these different clones.
Well, I'm sure Marc will have plenty to say about matching Pinot Noir with foods and dishes. What I find so exciting about Pinot Noir, which I love, you can have it with everything from fish to chicken to pork to steak. I'm thinking of that bistecca right now. This glass of Pinot Noir, a little bistecca would be so great. It can be really pure, have a lot of purity of fruit, but it also can be a little complex and a little meaty, almost a little like smoked meat. That goes great with all kinds of, just a wide array of dishes.
It's true, Brooks. You know, it's funny. You ask any wine and food pairing chef anywhere in the world, if you've forgotten all the rules about wine and food pairing, what do you serve? And the answer is always Pinot Noir. But a version like this is extra special and can hold up to something as rich and robust as a bistecca. So to have the kind of body in here, to not have it so leaned out, but to also have the backup characteristics of all the spices in those layers, it's incredible wine and food pairing wine.
Well, we're anxious to hear how folks are enjoying Stefano's pasta. And I just saw in a couple chats, I know Doug Bowman has said great things about Stefano's pasta. I think I heard from Gail, she says it's fantastic. So congrats to those people. They look at that, oh, it looks so great, that have enjoyed Stefano's recipe. So I want to get your take, Mark. How do you think Stefano did with this pairing?
Well, you know, I think Stefano always does an exceptional job, number one. But number two, to choose this type of a dish with some of these bright acidities to highlight that quality of the fruit in the wine, but to also have some spice and some depth and flavors here to play along with those secondary layers of the Pinot Noir, incredible. And of course, it did pair very well with the Chardonnay, but I would have to choose the Pinot if I were to put this on my table. What do you think, Stefano?
I agree totally with you. So as probably everybody knows, I'm a great fan of Pinot Noir and Nebbiolo. That's my favorite grapes. And if you are looking for something that, let's talk in Italian. So if you're looking for a wife that follow everything you do, you pair with the Chardonnay. If you like a little discussion, little contrast, little different point of views, and so something that clean also the palate, and every single time you go back to the pasta and you go back to the wine, Pinot Noir forever, my opinion.
That works.
Pinot Noir always.
Was a great job. And John, this is another one that we've gotten some pretty good reviews on, and what it would please share with everyone.
Well, absolutely, Tom, and hello to my wife Diane, and you're a Pinot Noir through and through. So Stefano, she just texted me and wanted to say thank you. She got her duck in the oven for 3 hours this morning. Said your recipes are fabulous, and she's sitting there with a couple of friends enjoying the evening. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And here's the thing about this: there's only 120 cases of this fabulous wine that's been produced this year. It got 90 points at the Winemakers Challenge, 90 points at the San Diego International Wine Competition as well. There's just a super number of competitions that they've done well on. If you're not looking at your cards right now to follow along, that'll tell you all you need to know about how fabulous this wine is. And what I want to remind you is that at 120 cases that were produced this year, this wine's going to sell out. This wine's going to sell out. We introduced the previous vineyard, and I think, Tom, we did about 200 cases for the 2016, and that was sold out last year. So this wine's not going to last very long. And the same thing with the Chardonnay. Those of you that have the opportunity to taste this tonight, fabulous. And Mark, I think, I just believe that there was only 184 cases of the 17. We bumped the production a little bit because we ran out so soon. So great time to get these wines, and they're absolutely delicious. They're everything you would want them to be. Absolutely.
So
I think
also,
we
if I could point out the list of vintages on the back of the Pinot Noir will give you an idea of how often we bottle this wine. It's not every single year. We didn't do one in 15 or 17, for example. So it may be, who knows? We're hoping for an excellent year. It could be another 2 years before we have a Reserve Pinot Noir available again.
I'd also like to point out on the back list of this card, it does say that the 18 Pinot is sold out. That is a typo. It is available for purchase. If you guys enjoy it, please order a case today.
I think we just got the best chat so far from Meg and Eric. They said, our neighbors have a pet duck, but I couldn't convince them to give it up for dinner. Yes, a pet duck. I'm glad that they didn't give up the pet duck. You can easily buy duck at the store. And I know most of you have for this show. Well, thank you. Well, look, now it's time to get to the big boys here. We're going Cabernet strong for the next 3 wines. And so our next wine to taste is our 2016 Reserve Cab. And so, Allie, if you'd like to run the video for this, please. I think this will be a great video to learn a little bit about more of our Reserve Cab program, which has been going on for some time. In 1980, we made our very first Reserve Cabernet. It was from the Preston Vineyard. Up until that point, Dario had never made a Reserve Cabernet. I don't think he'd ever had made a Reserve wine. So we wanted to make something very special. We made only a few hundred cases of it. We took the very best rows from the Preston Vineyard and we crafted this wine. And I remember, because it was a big deal, making this wine. We put it in a special package and we sent it off to the Los Angeles County Fair. So at the time, 40 plus years ago, this was the granddaddy of all wine competitions in the state of California. And up until that point, we really hadn't got a lot of recognition for our wines. We sold out of everything that we made. We didn't enter our wines in tastings or ratings. It just wasn't something that we did. And so it was really my urging to Dario that we enter the competition. I wanted to see how we measured up to the competition. And we got a huge surprise. We won the top double gold award at the Los Angeles County Fair for the 1980 Reserve Cab. And I know that we were jumping for joy here at the winery, and Dario couldn't believe it. I mean, we knew our wines were great. We just had never had that peer review, the professionals saying, yeah, you have something very special. We remember that we beat out a lot of the big names here in the Valley. And so that was really the start of our Reserve program. And so we did make the Reserves every year. We wanted to keep this program something very special. So only in those very best years did we produce a Reserve Cabernet. And so when we made these special wines, if those vintages happened to coincide with someone that we wanted to honor or a family that we wanted to celebrate, we would then do a special label. For me, these are all my kids here at the winery. This is going on 40 plus vintages here. And you remember some of them like the back of your hand, you all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into a particular vintage. But then there's always a story behind every label, and especially when you put someone's name on it. In 1994, I believe, we had the Rosenbrand family, and then there's one of these has my name on it here, of course only in the best vintage, 1997. So that was something that Dario did for me that I thought was fabulous, and just to
to honor my hard work over all these years. This one is a 1986 Reserve. I remember that. We got the great idea that we'd wrap each bottle in purple tissue, and after about the 10,000 bottles of doing that, we thought, okay, maybe that's a little bit too much work, but maybe some of you remember the gold medals that we used to put on. We were so proud of these. After we won about 1,000 gold medals, we kind of gave up counting. But anyway, that was just kind of something fun for us. So now you know a little bit of the backstory. So we don't make these wines each and every year, but when we do, they're really, really special. And that's what our Reserve program is about.
Our current vintage of Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon is the 2016. Excellent year. It was a little bit wet in the spring, and so Cabernet was slow to develop. It was harvested a little bit late, and the intensity of the tannin structure and flavors are excellent. Oftentimes we'll choose from our top vineyards, so it may be Mount Veeder, it may be Vittorio's, often the Preston and the Morosoli single vineyard wines will go in a particular blend. So our Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon is always 95% Cabernet, but it gives us a little bit of flexibility to modify the flavor profile. So the 2016 is exemplary of our program here. This will be my 41st vintage as a winemaker. And over the years, the question, what is a reserve wine, comes up frequently. To me, what it means is it has to be age-worthy and it has to be something that you want to lay down for some time. So how long do you age a reserve wine? For example, Chardonnay, being a white wine, it's probably not as long-lived as the Cabernet Sauvignon. Chardonnay, I would say 4 to 7 years. Pinot Noir, easily 10 years. Merlot, Cabernet, 20 years plus. So if you have the cellar space and the time to wait, give them their due and try to taste them at their peak. The only way you know if they're at their peak, you've tasted one bottle a year for the last 10 years. So if you buy a case, then you can monitor and follow the aging of the wine itself, which is really intriguing and probably one of the more fun aspects of drinking our wines.
What really sets our lineup apart is the amount of detail and the care and attention that goes into each and every one of these releases. So, the one that I really want to talk about the most is the newest release of our 2016 Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon. So prior to this, it was a 2013. So having a 3-year gap, I've been missing this in my life. And whenever we make reserve wines, we don't make a lot because they are truly our finest out of the lot. So a lot of people see our reserve lineup and they notice they're different right away. They see the wax tops on there and everybody always asks, does that preserve the wine? Does that make it taste better? And the answer is no, it just looks cool. But we do want it to look amazing because the wine inside is truly what we feel is amazing as well. So reserve is a term that's kind of loose and a lot of people do take advantage of it. They'll make a reserve lineup every year and it does not matter really exactly what's inside the bottle. There's no real law that denominates it. For us, I think it's a lot more special. And again, waiting until a certain vintage comes up to where we feel we're really blessed by Mother Nature. So we start by taking, our best fruit out of our best vineyards. And in the case of these wines, they'll all go into our oak barrels. And if you imagine we produced 100 barrels exactly of one of these wines, we'll go down the lineup of these 100 barrels per se, taste every one. The ones that taste better, we'll put a gold star on. And at the end of that lineup, we'll go and we'll marry those gold star barrels together to make and create and label what we call our reserve lineup. So truly taking the best out of our best in the best years is what makes a reserve so special here at Sattui.
Well, Brooks and Jason, what an amazing wine. And, what I enjoyed the last time we were discussing one of these wines and you were talking about what we're tasting And I think it was the Pinot Noir, you're talking about sage and cinnamon. And when you say those things, I absolutely start smelling and tasting those. And I think probably other people do too. It's really hard, I mean, to be a great taster, you guys got to drink more wine and really pay attention to what you're smelling and tasting. So what do you taste in this and what do you smell in this?
Well, I think for me, Tom, is the target is the first growths of Bordeaux, and having tasted enough of those, we're usually looking for cassis in big concentration, black cherry, deep dark aroma and texture, layers of flavor across the mid palate, plenty of tannin but not dry, not a dry finish. So the flavor profile starts in the nose, it should carry through the mouth, and then with a long finish, you still get those same aroma and flavors. That's what makes a complete wine to me.
Yeah, and diving into this one in particular, I mean, you put it up to your nose, and it jumps out of the glass. You can almost smell it as you're approaching the glass. You don't even need to get your nose in there. And when you're smelling it, what I'm getting is I get that really black cherry, blackberry, and that cassis. Those are all the fruits that are all there. But then there's these complexities of leather and earth, some mushroom and clove. There's just a lot going on. And then, I mean, the color, of course, I mean, it's a really deep ruby. You can't even see through it. I mean, there's just so much, there is so much color there and that tells you that there's going to be a lot of flavor in it as well. And then in the mouthfeel, yeah, this is a very big wine, and it's a baby. It's a baby right now. And normally I enjoy my wines a little bit more youthful with a lot of fruit. But even this one, I think it just needs a little bit more time, where it's a little bit big on the palate. It's going to soften over time, but that's what this wine is designed to be. And if you really appreciate what a reserve can be, you will get this wine, and you need to lay it down and give it at least 5 to 10 years. Start tasting it around there, and then decide whether you like it or you want to try to go a little bit farther. And it can go easily, like Brooke said, 20 plus years.
Well, the other aspect that is worth mentioning is these wines aren't released until a minimum of 2 years in the bottle. Chardonnay is probably a little bit ahead of that. And here we are tasting the 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon. It's been 3 years in the bottle. We've been sitting on this wine in our cellars for 3 full years before we've offered anyone to taste it. And so that's the other advantage of enjoying these reserve wines, is we've been aging them for your enjoyment and for our own enjoyment, of course, as well.
Well, an amazing job. And just thinking back to my wine, 1997, which has been sold out for, it seems like forever. But, every year I open a bottle of it, and here it is, about 19 years old. And we had one for the holidays, and it was just amazing. So, just to take what you said, Jason, this wine's still really, really young. And, you can put it away in your cellar, and it's just going to age forever. Well, look, Stefano and Marc, I know many people have been texting or chatting about the duck. And so anxious to, see your take on how this duck works with this Reserve Cab. And for those that are joining the cooking the meal with the wines, please save a little bit of your dishes to taste with all 3 wines. And I trust that you've all done that. But at the end, it might be fun to kind of see, okay, what is the consensus? What red paired the best here? So, Marc, what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, right away, I can just tell you I'm already done. I haven't left myself enough for the full time of this tasting because it is that delicious. And I wasn't lying in the video when I said there's been a huge gap in my life since the 2013. That was such a fabulous wine. And it's so nice to have a new version of Reserve Cab back. And this 16, again, kind of another wine and food pairs drink. This wine And I'll chime in with Jason and say, you know, I think the real responsible thing to do would be not to just get yourself one or two, but to have a case so that you can explore this wine through its youthfulness and then into its maturity as well. But to have it drinking so fabulous already, and to have these bright, ripe acidities paired with such sultry, soft tannins, this early in the game tells a guy like me to really keep your eye on a wine like this for some years to come. But I want, you know, I want Stefano to introduce the dish and kind of talk about some of the components, and maybe I can come back in and talk about maybe why I think the wine is going so amazingly with this.
So this is a very simple dish. I mean, the secret is to find a good neighbor duck to
a good neighbor.
Yeah, you just have to put the duck in the oven and let it cook slowly, and as you know, the quality of the meat comes out by himself. What I like at the end is to put in the oven for a while, like was like 20 minutes, 25 minutes in my oven, to make the skin very crunchy. So I love the crunchiness and the deep flavor of the skin compared with the smoothness of the soft and tender meat.
What's amazing
is this purple, just for the contrast. It's not only for the contrast, because the purple potatoes have a slightly different taste compared to the regular one. So they're more earthy, more, to me, more interesting. And I want to tell you something. I own a restaurant since 1989. And every year, the wine I like, I buy at least 4 or 5 cases, because I love once a year to taste the wine, how it works and how it ages, and particularly Napa Valley wines, for me, as the French one, as the Barolo or the Nebbiolo from my area, or some Pinot Noir. They're amazing after 20, 25 years. I mean, as someone said, it's a baby killing right now to drink these wines, but it's also necessary to understand how good is the wine, and the surprise you will have in 25 years will be super crazy.
Well, it's so much fun. It's like almost watching your children grow up. You know, you see them.
And if the last bottle is not good, you can use for the sauce.
We'll be seeing everyone in 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope Allie can post this, but Kevin Osborne just sent me a text of an Imperial, or it might have been a Nebuchadnezzar of the 1980 Reserve, and it has the double gold medal on the bottle, and I think she's going to put it in the chat room. But Kevin, oh my God, what a great bottle. And the thing, you know, we've been doing this a long time. It's pretty cool. Hey, John, let me say Wink, you know, I know we've been talking about how special these reserves are, and how infrequently that we produce them. And just looking at the back of this card, you know, it seems like people better jump on this pretty quickly if this is something they want.
Yep, absolutely, Tom. And you know, Brooks, Jason, and the entire winemaking team, and including our own vineyard team out in the vineyards. It starts in the vineyard, after all. Just congratulations for making this and having created this amazing Reserve Cab. I think Marc mentioned that the last vintage was 2013. We actually made about 300 cases, and it's a little less this year. And that 13 was released in 2018, if I recall correctly, Tom. We typically wait for at least 5 years before we release the vintage, so it has some time in the bottle, as Brooks was talking about. So so for the 2013, that wine was basically sold out about a year and a half to 2 years ago. We didn't have a Reserve Cab, and I don't know if we're going to have a Reserve Cab anytime soon again. So if you want a great, great wine, and here's what I like to do, and Brooks kind of mentioned it. For me, I'm going to buy, personally, if I'll allowed to, I'm going to buy a case of this wine. I'm going to put it in my cellar. And then what I'm going to do is in a couple of years, I'm going to invite some friends over and open this bottle. And I'm going to take notes about the tasting and notes about the people that are there. And for the next 12 years, I'm going to do the same thing over and over and over again. And enjoy, inviting my friends to enjoy the wine, taking notes of the tasting and what's going on, the impression with my friends. It doesn't get much better than that. It's priceless. And it really is an ability to chronicle those moments with great wine and great food. And I'm going to encourage you to buy this wine before it's gone, because I just don't think it's going to be here very long. It's absolutely spectacular.
Well, and I think as folks that are tasting these now live with us, we knew going into this virtual tasting that this is probably going to be one of the best lineups of wines we've ever put together for any kind of dinner or show. And I think that's saying a lot. Well, look, we have a few more wines to go, and we're already an hour in, so we still got a little bit of work to go. I'd like to have Brooks introduce this next wine.
Okay, well, this is our dust up Rutherford Cabernet Sauvignon, and the Rutherford area is known for something that's called Rutherford Dust. And I think as you put the glass up to your nose, you'll get that immediately. It's like going down a country road with red, dusty plumes in the air, and that's what we're talking about with Rutherford Dust. This particular wine comes from two of our very favorite vineyards, Gary Morrisoli and Mike Morrisoli, the brothers. They live literally a stone throw apart. Their soils are not identical. They're of the same origin, these alluvial fans that have come off the Mayacamas Mountains down from Mount St. John. Gary is a little closer to the mountain. The rocks are a little bit larger pebbles, and then Mike is a little farther away, so a little bit more of the fine, dusty, and small pebbles. And they both have their own unique characteristics. The origin of this wine, the idea came to us when we were participating in the auction Napa Valley, what they call the Premier Auction, which takes place in February, late January, February, and is part of the fundraising effort for the Napa Valley Vintners Association, which we've been members of for 35 years, I think, Tom. And so this is their main fundraising effort. And the criteria is it should be a wine that is unique. It's never been bottled before. It's never been shown to the public before. And they invite members of the trade, all kinds of wine writers and critics, but also distributors. And it's quite a fabulous event. So the first half of the day, everyone is able to taste through the wines. Then there's a live auction, and you can imagine it gets pretty exciting with a lot of paddles being raised. And we were really pleasantly surprised. We got a $16,000 bid on this wine. And so we said, okay, why don't we may not make it every single year, but why don't we do that again? Because it was so successful. Let's share it with our friends and our customers here at Sattui. We came up with this gorgeous package with some silkscreen printing on it. It's very simple but elegant, and the wine just speaks for itself. It's typically 50-50 between the two vineyards. We may modify it from year to year, and I called it a dust up because it was a little competitive challenge between the two brothers, and they I think over the years, they have had a little bit of a competitive edge, and we said, okay, which one is better? Let's see what we can do when we put both of them together.
Well, thanks, Brooks. Well, Allie, we put together another great video talking about this wine. And so please roll it. It's a great video. You're gonna enjoy it.
This is the Rutherford Dust Up. This is a really special wine for us. It is almost 100% Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's coming all from the appellation of Rutherford. And what makes Rutherford really special? It's in the center of Napa Valley, and this is an area where there's this bench land that comes off of the mountainside, and it's called an alluvial fan. And this fan is created over millions of years. The weather really brings down pieces of that earth and soil and spreads it out across the valley floor. And it creates this beautiful gradient. And that's really where the Rutherford Dust gets its name, is that often this earthy component can come through in the wine. We call it the Rutherford Dust. And the Rutherford Dust Up is a special blend of two different vineyards. Our traditional Morasoli cab is from Gary Morasoli. And his vineyard is a little bit higher on that alluvial fan. So typically what we're tasting in Gary's vineyard is really that traditional earthy, robust tannins and really rich full-bodied fruits.
The dirt here at Morasoli Vineyard I think is really special. It's a little bit elevated over some of the other areas in Rutherford, and it's well drained. So that soil is light enough to where it allows water to drain quickly from it, and it also allows the vines to get roots down deep so that they can get to more groundwater. But they also struggle a bit, and that's what helps make those complex flavors that we all love so much in our Cabernets.
Coming out of Mike's vineyard, which is the other 50% of this blend, we get a little bit more of that soft, velvety texture in the wine and a little bit more of the juicy fruits. But once you put these two together, you're really getting something special. And you're kind of getting this Goldilocks of a wine where you have the best of all your worlds of Rutherford. And because it's such a small quantity that we bottle, we're able to really put a lot of attention to detail in the wine and in the bottle. I mean, we're able to finish it with this beautiful gold wax, and we do a burnished gold screen printing. When you give this a taste, I mean, when you put this up to your nose, it really, the fruit just bursts out of the glass. And that's really a testament to the quality of fruit coming out of Rutherford. And you get this, a little bit of this earthy, that's that typical Rutherford dust. And then when you taste this, you really just get that mixture of the two vineyards. You get that plushness from the Mike Morasoli vineyard. It's kind of this velvety, full roundness on the palate. You finish with this dry tannin on the back palate. And those are the two things that we're looking to really come together on this wine. And this is a perfect example of that.
We all know and love our Morasoli Vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon, but back in 2017, something pretty special happened. When we decided to take the best fruit from both sides of these vineyards, we came out with our Rutherford Dust Up. And I gotta tell you, we've had a lot of amazing wines over the years, but this one seriously has my attention at the moment. Just the smell, the aromas of this wine tells you these tannins are going to be velvety, soft, and smooth throughout, but also bursting with luscious fruits. Everything from raspberry, dark cherries to blackberries and cassis depth to this wine. It's like being in the corner of an old library where no one's been for some time, and you start messing with all those old dusty book bindings and entering into a fine automobile, that kind of elegant feel that you get. And it doesn't get much smoother than that. And yet it's that soft. We can tell by the structure of the wine, it's gonna hold the test of time throughout in your cellar and should be absolutely amazing for years to come.
Marc, I loved your descriptors on this wine. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, often, well, let me put it this way. Anybody who ever introduces a Rutherford Cabernet to you needs to use the word dusty. It's so unique to the area and to the wines that come from there. But I gotta say, this is such an exemplary example of it. It's just bursting out of the glass with everything that Jason talked about as well. I mean, there's young and lively fruits to deep and dark and condensed fruits, but that Rutherford Dust, that's really what it's all about. And why wouldn't we have named the bottle that if it really didn't show that? And I have yet to find another bottle of Rutherford Cabernet that shines so brightly in that area.
Well, as Jason said, it's that Goldilocks.
Yeah.
Our Morzoli cabs are phenomenal, but this just kind of turns it on its head a little bit, and it just gives it that juiciness and velvety texture, but still has that dustiness. I mean, we've been chomping at the bit to release this wine. I mean, we knew we had. I mean, back when Brooks came up with this idea, back at Premier Napa Valley, someone was willing to pay us $16,000 for this. We thought, okay, maybe we're on to something here. And so this is the art of blending, and where these two vineyards and this dust up comes together. And I'm so excited that we can finally get this wine out. And we have so little of it, Wink. I mean, and it's I don't know. What do you say, Wink?
Well, it's 191 cases produced. Okay, so, if that doesn't get you to say there's something special in this bottle, let me tell you, for those that are tasting along with us, there's something really special in this bottle. So there's not going to be a lot of this left. This Chronicle rated this as best of class, and so if it's best of class, that's saying something really powerful, especially since it's coming from the Chronicle, and this is kind of the North Bay is kind of wine country up here. So there's an awful lot of people that are putting their wines for judgment in the Chronicle, and we're just so proud of this. And 191 cases, this is like a reserve cab. It's absolutely a reserve cab. And I don't think there's anything like it. So boy, I wouldn't hesitate for at least adding maybe 1, 2, 6, 12 bottles when you're looking to lay some wine down that's going to last forever and put a smile on your face. It's really, really good, as I'm sure everybody watching is just being blown away by it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I have to confess, we put together some great videos because that way we could kind of drink along with you and have some fun, because there's so much information to share. I hope you're all enjoying these wines. Well, the whole idea of the Winemaker's Dinner came about for the release of the Paradiso. And that was really when we started doing these dinners for you, our very best customers. I promise, that we're going to bring these back. And if we got to do a couple of them next year, we'll do a couple of them so we can get you back here at the winery and we can dazzle you here live with our wines and with Stefano's cooking. But the 17 Paradiso, we just, and the idea of this virtual tasting is that we wanted to share this wine with you, of course, with all these others as well. And we put together one more video. This tells the story of Paradiso. And this is really what this Winemaker's Dinner is all about. So please, Ali, if you'd like to run that, please enjoy it.
If we go back to about 2006, our winemaker, Brooks Painter, had a little side gig. He was making some wine on the side. He had a little winery called Coho, and he had made a wine called Headwaters, which we had blended from many different Bordeaux varieties. Ended up getting a great score in the Wine Spectator, and it gave me an idea. Maybe we should have a wine that's a blend of many grapes, because up until that point, we've made only vineyard designated Cabernet. So I pitched that idea to Brooks. He says, I'm in. And so we wanted to have something that was really unique, and I wanted to give Brooks the ability to craft a wine that was different each year. And it wasn't putting him in a box that he had to blend to each particular year. So in 2007, we crafted our first proprietary blend. We now just needed a name. And there's a town I visited in 1990 in northern Italy, southern Switzerland, and it was right on Lake Lugano, and the name of the little village was called Paradiso, and I've always liked that name. So we had a name, and we had a wine, but we didn't have a label. So as we talked about, how could we do something that's really unique? Well, about this time, Fabio Sangioni was on his way to finishing up the frescoes at the castle. And here's this amazing Italian artist. And as we became friends, he showed me this wonderful artwork. And I've always had a love of modern art. And so I thought, what a great label for this wine, because we could come up with a different label each year that would somehow pair with the particular vintage. So we've put together now a string of some pretty amazing pieces of art that have now adorned our labels for all the different wines.
I always painted when I was a kid, but it was kind of difficult for me to get into it's not business, into the field, because my father was a tough guy. So he was a teacher, and he has very strict ideas, you know, about what you are supposed to do according to your abilities and blah, blah, blah. So I found myself totally on the street, okay? Until one day, my brother, which is a set designer, and he said, well, do you want to help me? And so I started, you know, building sets for theater, so opera, ballet, operetta, commedia dell'arte, and I learned from the masters there. I met Dario through a decorator over 20 years ago. Then, a few years later, I had to do something else, probably for Sattui. Tom loves art, and he always loved art. And between him and Pat, they had this idea to create a new thing for this particular wine that was coming out. It's a Bordeaux blend, Paradiso. And so I had some paintings. Since I also like to do most of the time abstracts, and I said, okay, let's see if we can do something with that. And that's how we came up with the idea, you know, different painting for every vintage. And actually it's been successful.
Here in Napa Valley, our focus is often on Cabernet Sauvignon, but there's so many other opportunities to include Merlot, Petit Verdot, Malbec, and Cabernet Franc. And so this was an exciting opportunity for me as a winemaker to think that, okay, maybe the doors have opened and we can really create something that's going to be really special and give us the artistic license to make it our own each year. I want to make a wine that is very enjoyable. The aromas have to be captivating, and it needs to lead you into the palate of the wine. They should be consistent. The goal of this program is to create a world-class wine, emblematic of a Bordeaux classic red, but with the California signature.
Now, one of my absolute favorite wines of all time here, being with Sattui, is our Paradiso. And in front of me here is not all, but some of the different vintages that we produced. And Paradiso is, quite frankly, just our most premier Bordeaux varietal blend. So it is just a pure form of what an absolute true Bordeaux varietal blend should be coming from California. And you know, in here, some of my personal favorites, like their 2010, where we utilized 3 of them. That was Cab and Merlot, Petit Verdot, up into the last few, where we utilize all the Bordeaux 5. So having Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Malbec, and Petit Verdot. And for our winemaking team to produce such unique variations on a Bordeaux varietal blend year to year makes this such an interesting and outstanding wine of ours. This is our most current, which I'm really excited about this year. Our 2017 Paradiso, being all the Grand Bordeaux 5, has amazing, explosive, acidic, bright red berried fruits right now, but also is carrying forth with that earthy and spicy tones. And that's really, I think, you know, like I said, encapsulates everything. Some blends in this nature fall a little short in support areas or in certain aroma tones, and our Paradisos always seem to hit the mark in every area. It's always an exciting time when the new Paradiso comes out, and I can't wait to share this particular vintage with you.
Hey, Brooks, you know, each year you blend this, and as Mark was talking about in the video, you know, that some years it's 3 varietals, some years it's 5. Why does that change? And does it have to do with the particular vintage or just what you're feeling like putting together? Please share that.
Well, Tom, every year in my mind, there's a shining star, and often it's Cabernet, but some years it might be Merlot. We call those the Merlot years, and we get together as colleagues and you know, groups of winemakers, and we say, oh yeah, this is the Merlot year. And it's not to take anything away from Cabernet, but Merlot has just done so well. And then there might be some years where Petit Verdot, which we often use 1 to 2% because it's so powerful in a particular vintage, it's more moderate and more mouth-filling and mouth-coating and not so aggressive on the tannins. So we've had as low as 60% Cabernet, as high as 30% Merlot, as high as 85% Cabernet and 7% Merlot. And it really, the vintage and the quality of the wine is what dictates the ultimate blend. So we go through, we taste every single lot of wine, all the different vineyard blocks, and we choose our favorites, just like in the selection for the other reserve wines. And through that process, we say, okay, well, we have more Merlot that we're preferring this year than a normal year or a regular year. So we should consider more Merlot. And so that's how the genesis of these blends come together. And so at the end of the day, we come back and we retaste. Jason and I will taste these wines 20, 25 times during their residency in barrels as they evolve. And then when it comes time to pull the final blend together, it may be a completely different blend than the previous year. It may be something similar to what we did 5 years. We really don't know until we have that moment where we say, yes, that's it, and that's the blend. So it's a lot of work. Somebody has to do it, unfortunately. So we've been chosen. This is what we have to do, and it's so much fun to discover these different varieties and how they knit together into the final delicious product.
Wow, what a great job. And Jason, I know you're a big part of putting these blends together as well. How do you think this vintage stacks up? I mean, this is pretty stiff competition going all the way back to 2007. People are chiming in on the chat, talking about they just drank the 07. Some just had the 2011. This is some, and you know, on the cruises, we've done verticals of the Paradiso. It's how does this vintage stack up to you? It tastes pretty damn good to me right now.
Gosh, Brooks or Tom, I really got to say this vintage. I mean, the last couple of vintages where we're throwing in all 5 Bordeaux varietals. Now this is everything. this is where we're looking at more of the complexities of each of those varieties and what they have to offer. And this one in particular, it shows really well. And they are just so well integrated, and they're intricate, and it's such a fun wine. I think it's just a great example of what a Bordeaux blend should be and what our Paradiso has come to represent.
Well, you know, what's crazy too is that, you know, the rule says all you need to do is blend 2 or more of those. And if you ask the world's best juggler, hey, what's easier on you today? You know, 5 chainsaws or 2? And I guarantee you he's going to say 2. It's so much more of a task to take all the 5 big guys and blend them into such harmony. And so well done this vintage, you guys.
Well, thanks, Mark. We have so much fun making these wines, all of these wines, everything we've tasted, and of course with Stefano's wonderful cooking and ideas on how to prepare such fabulous dishes that pair with these wines. We're really fortunate to have him here and working with us to really tune up our palates, because Stefano is not just a chef, he's a very, very well-trained taster of wine, obviously, after your long years at the restaurant and the number of high-end customers that you get passing through, and their expectation from Michelin star chef, it's got to be fabulous. So kudos to Stefano to up our game a little bit and assist us in the flavor profiles and what's really good.
Thank you, Brooks. I mean, it's a pleasure and honor, and something that scares me all the time to pair my simple dishes to yours and Jason great wines. I'm happy that you like them.
Oh, absolutely. It's our pleasure.
Well, hey, Stefano, we're excited to hear your thoughts. So, I mean, a lot of people have made the duck. I've been hearing, seeing a lot of great comments on chat about the duck. But so, you know, you've had the opportunity to taste the Reserve Cab, taste the Dust Up, and now the Paradiso. You know,
so
how do you choose?
So first of all, you were not a little skeptical about the duck. Yeah, at the beginning you told me, I don't know, but I knew that was.
Yeah, you're a smart guy.
It was simple and that everybody could enjoy and make it very easily at home. What I have to say, I came here 7 years ago. So I came here 2008, first visiting you in 2009, 2010 for the Harvest Bowl, and still in one of the best memories of me and my wife. And honestly, I can't choose. So my opinion is to cook a couple of duck legs more and taste all of them together. So open a bottle of each one and go back and forth and try them.
So you need 2 neighbors.
Well, you can always get more duck. You can't get more of this. That's what I say.
So I can tell them how to kill the ducks without the neighbor knows it. It's pretty simple. Anyway, Paradiso is 1.5 hours from my place in Italy. And I don't know if you're familiar with the word, but Paradiso in Italian means heaven. So for me, Sattui, family, friends, wines, and food are heaven. So if I have to choose one, Paradiso, of course.
Ah, good job.
Good. Well, hey, Wink. So this particular vintage of Paradiso was not only great quality, but we didn't make a whole lot of it.
No, and we didn't. So just to remind everybody, back in 2007, Brooks, that vintage actually is reminiscent of the Paris tasting, where they selected the Paradiso to be the best Bordeaux varietal, but they couldn't do that, so they had to split the baby in half. And whatever the French wine was at the time, and this was the first vintage for you. They gave that to the French, and they selected the Paradiso 2007 as the best Bordeaux blend. So I think this one's going to be pretty darn good as well. And I think, well, in fact, I know that the Monterey Wine Competition results just released. It was the best Bordeaux style blend, 96 points and a platinum medal. And again, I'll go back to what I was saying before. If they could have given it a double platinum, they would. There's only 191 cases of this produced. If I go back to the prior vintages, I think, Brooks, you're getting stingy with this wine, or maybe I should blame Tom, but we don't have a lot of this wine. It's 191 cases. I know that's not, it's bigger than my cellar, but that's not a lot of wine. So I know we have, how many viewers do we have tonight, Tom? 200 and what?
Well, yeah, we had up to 500 people, 250 people. Well, I know we said 250 sets. That's about
So
five.
we don't have enough sets for everybody.
Yeah.
No, Paradiso for everybody.
We don't have enough Paradiso for everybody. So I expect this one. I expect this one, like many of the reserve wines that we're seeing tonight across the board. The special thing about this is both Brooks and Tom get together and say, do we have a wine that really deserves to have the reserve label? And the answer is maybe not this year. And boy, we've got a home run of different wines here that you can enjoy, and you can mix and match a case. And boy, is it just really exciting that you can have some of the very best wines in the Napa Valley crafted by Brooks and Jason. And boy, I'm just really excited to be able to share these with you.
Right. Well, thanks, Wink. And well, we have one more wine, and then we'll talk about kind of just summarizing what we've gone through here in the last hour and a half. But I'd like Jason to kind of lead this out. He has been, I think, a big part of this particular wine. And so please tell us what we're tasting here.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so as far as our port programs go, we have gotten so many requests recently, just that everyone wants us to bring back the vintage ports. I mean, we haven't released a vintage port for so long, and that's because we don't release vintage ports every year. Even Portugal, they don't release a vintage port every year. They only release these types of wine when there's an absolutely stellar year and something to showcase. And so we're excited to do a pre-release. Now, what we're tasting here is not released yet. It's not released tomorrow. It's not released in a month. This is only being shown early because we really want to showcase the other ports that we have going on right now. So if you enjoy this wine, you can purchase it now, but you won't be able to purchase it again for, it could be months, it could be a year. We're not exactly sure when we want to actually release this wine. So if you enjoy it, this is the time to get it. And so we are pre-releasing, this is the 2015 vintage port. That means all of the grapes that went into this port were grown in 2015. And that's different than the other ports that we have available right now. We also have a 15-year-old port harvested 15 years ago or more. And so this is a much younger port. And I like to say there's two different styles of port. You have your aged ports that are called a tawny style, and they have all these flavors of nuts and all these oxidized characters that give a different taste to those wines. Where this is the other side. This is the other side of the coin, where this is what we call a ruby port. It is, 5-6 years old, but it's still very youthful for a port. It has a lot of those beautiful flavors of fruit still present in the wine, and those are the most prominent flavor that you get in this. And when you taste this, you really get that fruity plum berry. It has this baker's chocolate and mocha on the palate, and it has a little bit of that nut. Almost, I'd lean towards like an almond on this one, and I'm really enjoying it. Brooks, maybe you can talk a little bit about the varieties that go into this.
Well, I'd be happy to, Jason. These are all traditional port varieties. Names that some of you may recognize: Touriga Nacional, Tinto Cao, Sauzao, Tinta Madeira. Each of the varieties has something to offer, much like Paradiso. So each of the varieties brings a different flavor profile, different aromatics, different power and strength, or subtle notes. So, for example, the Touriga Nacional is a classic port variety. It's kind of more of a mellow red port variety. Tinta Cao has a little bit more tannin. Sauzao is the big gun, really inky black, generally more tannin. And then the Tinta Madeira is the really refined texture in the wine. And by bringing these all together into this wine, as Jason said, this is a more youthful style. The vintage ports typically have more fruit up front than the older aged wines, like our 15-year-old. And for those of you who've been, were on our last cruise, and we stopped in Porto for the day, and we had some really wonderful tastings, visited several port houses, and we got great examples of the difference between vintage, which are more fruit forward, younger, more youthful, but at the same time, more age worthy. They want it to age in the bottle, not necessarily in the barrel. And so that was the idea with this particular wine. We're really looking for the big, jammy blackberry character that you get with more fresh fruit in this wine, and especially the lingering fruit on the palate. I can still taste it right now. It's been a minute since I took a sip, and I'm still tasting that really nice berry fruit and flavor on the finish. So here's to our next cruise or next visit to Porto.
Salute.
So, oh my God. Well, what a wonderful job on this wine. But go ahead, Mark. You were going to say something.
I was going to say that the thing that grabs me is that normally I'm always torn to go towards the tonics. They just have that more kind of sultry nuttiness behind them. But what I love about this release of this vintage port is that it's not so cloyingly sweet. It's not just liquid raisins in your face. It has so much more layers of aromas and like I think Jason mentioned, almost kind of a mocha and chocolatey tone that's coming in strongly, and really makes this so much different than some of the other vintage ports that I've had recently.
Well,
Stefano just showed the tiramisu. I wish I had a plate of it right here.
I made a pan for you, all of you.
Oh, thank you, Stefano.
It's in the cooler, so we get to enjoy that here shortly. Actually, speaking of pick me up, so how about a little tiramisu?
Well, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but tiramisu was invented in a bottle, and the translation can be like "Give me some energy." And so it was offered at the end of the night to the guests. And so the idea came to me because now is the season of the strawberries, and not only the grapes in Napa, but also the strawberries are great. So I made this little creative way of making tiramisu, and it's a little lighter for me and more interesting because pairs much better with sweet wines or port or Madeira, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
That's a great job.
Salud.
Well, thank you, Stefano, and thank you, Brooks and Jason, for crafting. And again, this wine is, as we talked about some of these other red wines, is still such a baby, and really does need to be aged. And we made it in a style that we want to bottle age it as opposed to barrel age. So it's so different than our Madeira or our 15-year-old port. And we're just doing a pre-release on this. So for those that are watching tonight, you know, our very top best customers, you have opportunity to put this away, but we're not going to be selling it for a while. So you won't see it on any order forms, but I think you need to put some of this in your cellar, sit on it. You're going to have something very spectacular. Well, look, yeah, we've gone a little bit over our time limit. Let's kind of wrap this up. Wink, maybe just to let everyone know how to order. I mean, I've been getting texts here on my phone. I mean, some people have said, hey, tell Annie, I want a case of this. Have her call me on Monday. I got a text from Kara, bring some of the tiramisu home.
I've got people texting me nonstop right now for case orders. So, I think you guys should all mind what Wink was talking about earlier. There's not a lot that's go around, and some of this stuff might even be gone tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Tom, you're right. I mean, we're going to make it as easy as pie or tiramisu to order this wine. Most of you, if not all of you, have a personal wine consultant. Please just contact them on a Monday. They'll be happy to help you select the wines that are featured tonight. The vintage port for me, amazing. And to re-emphasize, buy now or buy later. When I say later, it's not going to be there forever. We're going to let Brooks and Tom squirrel it away and not let you buy it for a while. And you know what? It needs to be aged a little bit, but boy, is it good right now. And those of you that are tasting with us right now know it. So it's something to put in your cellar, but it's also something to drink right now. So I'd encourage you to maybe get 1, 2, 10 bottles right now that you can taste now, and another 1, 2, or 10 bottles that you can taste later. Contact your personal wine consultant by the phone. Go online. You've got a special code, I think, or coupon code. I think Mark's going to give that to you. Or call us on Monday, 707-973-7774. We'll be happy to help you with it. With your orders. And it's, I just want to say that, again, I mean, I think the wines that we've tasted tonight certainly blown me out of the water tonight. They have been fabulous. They really have. Each and every one of them. There's not a better wine in the world. Okay, so Tom?
Well, thank you. And I think Allie just put on the chat the coupon code, so that's a really easy way to order. I think to let the wines do the talking. Yeah, you guys, you know what you're tasting. It's just some pretty special stuff here tonight. And I've been doing this a long time. Brooks, you have as well. You've been making wine for 40 some years. So we're kind of the veterans here on the Zoom. And there's something really, really special about what we've put together here tonight. And unfortunately, we didn't make a lot of these wines. So I know they're going to go quickly. And so I think we got all the information out. You think you received the order forms. You know how to order wines. So thank you for that. But I just like to give a couple of shout outs here tonight. we hired a young man, originally from the Midwest. He worked on the Oprah show and came out of Hollywood. And during the pandemic, he wanted to get the heck out of town, moved to the Napa Valley because he liked wine. And he helped us put together these videos. His name is Russell Perry. And just like to thank Russell for the great job. And it's his, his drones. And anyway, what a really nice guy. And again, came to the Napa Valley because he loves wine. And who would think? Very, very special. And I can't thank enough Allie Patterson. You would think that, I think it would have been easier if we would have had the dinner, but truthfully, but putting together the show and all the collateral and the videos and everything was a tremendous effort on all of our parts, but especially Allie. So I can't thank her enough for this, and for all the behind the scenes work, for Greg and his team putting together 1,500 little bottles that we did under argon gas. We didn't do this half-ass, that we wanted to protect these wines. So there was no oxidation. So, oxygen never saw these wines as they got into the little bottles. And to thank to all of you who have been our loyal fans for so many years. Kevin Osborne, I don't know, he just texted me. I sold him a Nebuchadnezzar of 1980 Reserve, and he still showed the bottle. And I don't know if we were able to put that on the show tonight. But we just have so many friends and people have been texting me, and Marc and others. It's so special for us to have you as our family here. And just lastly, thank you to all the mothers out there as we begin Mother's Day weekend and Mother's Day tomorrow. And my mom, we're going to celebrate her on September 17th. That would have been her birthday. And we're going to have our Notte Italiana that night. And my mom has been to many of our events, and unfortunately she's no longer with us. And I think that's the case with a lot of our moms, how special they are. But I still have one great mom that's a part of my family, and that's Takara. And oh my God, she has been such a great mother to our daughter, Kara. So fortunate. Anyway, that's our show tonight. It's a wrap. Thank you to all my co-hosts tonight, and great winemakers and wine growers and chefs. This has been truly a memorable tasting, a memorable virtual tasting. I can't wait to start doing them here at the winery, and we're starting in July, and we'll see you all back. And thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Hope to see you soon here at the winery.
You guys are the best.
Good night. Cheers.
Good day, everyone.